Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino DeGregory, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino DeGregory.
Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Gino DeGregory. Today's episode, we're talking about fostering people-first leadership, the power of workplace microcultures, and redefining career growth. Our guest, Ann Garza, is an award-winning HR executive and the Chief Human Resources Officer at Kerbey Lane. She's played a pivotal role in the company's expansion and in shaping a thriving workplace culture that has earned multiple industry accolades. Beyond her leadership at Kerbey Lane, Ann serves as the state director on the Executive Council of Texas Society for Human Resources Management, representing over 23,000 HR professionals. She was honored as the HR Executive Leader of the Year by Austin SHRM for her contribution to organizational excellence and community impact. And why did I invite Ann to the conversation here, and why is it important? The way we think about leadership, mentorship, and long-term career growth is evolving. With younger generations prioritizing purpose and culture, companies must rethink engagement strategies to retain top talent. Ann is here to share insights on how leaders can build inclusive, purpose-driven teams that stand the test of time. Ann, welcome. Your career is a testament to the power of people-first leadership. Can you start by sharing a bit about your journey and what drew you to HR leadership?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Gino. It is truly a pleasure to be here today and with your listeners. I appreciate that. So I am basically someone who has always been in hospitality and restaurants, like the service industry. And after many, many years of being on the restaurant side of business, I decided that I wanted to have a bigger impact and ultimately transitioned into learning and development and then human resources about 22-ish years ago. And so I've been on this side of the business for a long time, and I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of changes, not just in the workforce, but in the people, right? And I'm in the business of people. And so it's been really fun. And I've been at Kerbey Lane for about 18 years now. And as you mentioned, I'm their Chief Human Resources Officer. And I have the pleasure of really focusing on our culture and our people and how we, really drive our sense of service to our guests.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, congratulations on all your success. And one of the things that I like to ask all my guests is, what does being a kind leader mean to you?
Well, I think that being a kind leader is, of course, being empathetic, understanding and meeting people where they're at, not necessarily where you want them to be. And I think it's also, it's being considerate to their circumstances and being clear about your expectations, and then always making sure that you're providing an opportunity for feedback and communication, two-way communication, right? Being a kind leader isn't just about telling people what you need and what you want. It's also listening to what they need and what they want.
Absolutely. It's really connecting and understanding the other side, right? I mean, you and your role and how you help with the culture is in how you're training the leaders in the organization. The biggest thing as a kind leader is really making the connection and caring about your individuals to make sure they're successful at the end of the day, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Giving them the tools, making sure that they feel supported, making sure they feel understood, but also being honest with them when they're not meeting expectations. I think that that's a piece of kindness that people misconstrue. They assume that kindness is, I'm just going to do whatever you want. And it's well, no, kindness it goes both ways. And it's an understanding that we share and that an agreement that we come to, and we meet each other in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, as I was doing research on you, Ann, and the company, I'm all about kind leader from an individual perspective. But one thing that popped up on how much Kerbey Lane does for the community, and associated that with a kind leader as an individual in the professional world, but then can a company be a kind leader? And what does that mean? And I thought to myself, as I'm connecting with the community and caring about the community that is surrounding that particular organization is a way of leading with kindness to support that, So I know Kerbey Lane does a great job, and I know you've been advocate. Can you talk a little about that? Did that resonate, and does that the connection make sense?
Yeah, of course it makes sense. And, thank you. Thank you for the compliments. I mean, it's definitely something that we're really proud of. Kerbey Lane's been around for 45 years. We're celebrating our 45th year this year. And that's no joke. Like that takes a lot of effort and consideration and hard work, especially in restaurants, right? So we are always cognizant of the community that supported us. And we felt like that was a really huge piece of how we have thrived within the community. And that's really what we intended, right? These restaurants, we started with one, we've got 10 now. They're all meant to exemplify the community and the neighborhood that they're in. They're all meant to support the local organizations that help to drive a city forward. And then, for us, the way that we really utilize that with our team is helping them to get perspective, right? I think that anytime any human can have outside perspective, can learn lessons from other, people, I think that really improves your ability to have a greater understanding of human nature and of what people need. And I think, again, perspective is really big with that. And so a few years back, we've always given back to the community, but several years ago, we really fine-tuned that and created something called Kerbey Kindness, which is where we are consistently and constantly giving back to local organizations. And that is financially, but it's also through manpower. And so that's physically being out in the community and working with nonprofits.
That's amazing. That's great.
It is great. I love a day when we have a volunteer event. I love it. It's very exciting. I think you get to see a side of your coworkers. You get to have a different level of a team aspect, and you get to see yourself helping someone and see people really light up. I think it teaches us a lot about ourselves as humans, like what resonates with us.
Right. So, and what resonates with me, to be honest, I'm it's the kind leader. Again, I'll repeat myself here just to make a point, but it's, I was just thinking myself or the leaders within the organization, but what you just said, Kerbey Kindness, it's the company, right? The company can be kind and will be kind to the community that it's in, right? That will impact. And so can you share a little bit more about how did that come about? And have you been able to see the impact throughout the years? And not only the impact that you're making to the people that are receiving this, great experience, but also the employees given it, right? Behind that, I'm sure you've seen some of those changes and you've been able to attract probably amazing people to the organization as well, right?
Well, I feel like you kind of set me up perfectly for that, Gino. So thank you, because ultimately, I've been here for, as I mentioned, 18 years. And in that time, the world has changed multiple times and it continues to evolve and change. And we're constantly trying to figure out our footing, and we're constantly trying to figure out how we maintain a team culture and how we continue our culture, right? Which is, one of the things that I always say is I have a heart for hospitality and a soul for service. And that's why I work where I work and why I do what I do as a professional. But one of the things that I've noticed in the 18 years is when I got here, we were a smaller organization. It was really easy to hire. It was really easy to retain. We were kind of like a local institution. And then the city evolved and the city kind of changed and the city kept getting bigger and growing. And we kept getting bigger and growing. And we almost lost our footing a little bit. I'll say that, I'll be honest. There was a period of time where I felt specifically like we were scrambling a little, myself included in that, just figuring out what does our team need and what do they want now and who are they? And so really took some time and put a magnifying glass to that. And where we've been able to really thrive is with this philanthropy. And in doing that, there's been a direct correlation between having this philanthropy full force, being open and honest about it and involved with it, and our retention numbers, like the best that we've seen. In my entire time of working here, we're seeing the best numbers we've seen. And that's coming off of, obviously, a few years ago, a very difficult time for everyone and, including our industry. And so I'm really proud of that. And our team really says that that's one of the things that, keeps them here.
Beautiful. Well said there, Roseanne. And, you are a first in the industry that you're in my podcast. The people that I've interviewed in the past have been in IT and government and real estate, so being in the hospitality industry, it's all about taking care of people, right? And I always tell my employees, and an example that I give, I want my customers, even though we provide technology services, but I want our customers to feel like the best experience. That, like, if you walk into Disney World, right, you walk in, you know what you're going to get: the smell, the sounds, the things coming around, right? You know that experience, and it hits the emotional side, so you will remember that, right? You will remember it forever, right? Same thing is like, what are we doing to make that impact to our customers? So coming back, by you creating this amazing, not only contributing to the community, to the culture, but your customers will see that as well, right? And will feel it, and they know, and they'll not only go to your restaurants or go to the things that they do, but they potentially want to work there too as well. You never know, right?
Right. I mean, one of the biggest compliments I think any of us can get is when we meet someone out kind of in the wild, like unexpectedly, and they figure out that we work, for Kerbey Lane, and they immediately have some story about how they had this incredible experience, or their first date with their now husband, or,
Wow.
they went with their parents, every Saturday morning when they were kids. And I mean, those are some of the greatest stories, is really seeing and hearing how we've impacted the community and how we've really created we talk about like third place. Do you know what third
Mhm.
place is? So, right, like everybody's first place is typically like, your home. A lot of people, their second place is like work or the gym or church or whatnot. And so we're really trying to be that third place for people, which is like, this is where you want to be.
Mm.
And so I love hearing those stories. And I love that our team creates those memories for our guests.
That's beautiful, beautiful. And then now, so shifting back towards the inside of the organization. So, as your growth and retention, we talk about mentoring, right? But your angle of modern mentoring and modern kind of mentees, right? The career development. How do you infuse that culture? How do you work? Is there a training process that you follow, or, like, just share a little bit about that for our guests?
Yeah. So I think that like mentoring for me throughout the years, like everything else, it evolves. And I think that what we're seeing as a world of work is that people are not staying at their organizations for long, long periods of time anymore, right? Like I think when we look at prior generations, you got your first job and that was your only job, and you worked there for 40 years and then you retired and that was
Mhm.
life. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right,
But
right.
that's not what we're seeing today. I mean, today we see that typically, people will stay somewhere a year, 18 months, 2 years, 5 years, I feel like is a very long time for people to stay somewhere. And
Mhm.
so we really took that in mind and created a mentorship program that is much more shorter increments and almost like group mentoring. So it's more project based, it's more short term, it's faster results. And like we do deeper bonds because we connect them through not just professional likeness, but also personal likeness. And we do it not just within one location, but across location. And so we're really taking the entire population of the team and saying, okay, well, just because you work at this one doesn't mean that you couldn't have a great mentor at a different one. And they bond over things like, they're an artist, right? So
Yeah.
again, I'm in the live music capital of the world, for those of you who don't know, which that's Austin, Texas. And so there are a lot of musicians in this town, a lot of artists in this town, creatives. And so finding ways for people to bond over that, because it brings in the personal. And, sometimes when you're working in a mentorship program, you need to go deep quickly and you want
Mhm.
that to feel authentic and genuine. And so making sure that they have that common ground, I think really kind of accelerates the ability to do that.
That's beautiful. I mean, and that's something that, I'm big on culture here with the other organization as well. And we do have like a Bravo mentor kind of concept. But what you said about aligning the individual with not only the skill sets, right, but also the likeness, right, on the personality, that's important too, right? Because you can't have, just because they're in the same role or have, somebody, the mentors maybe a few years ahead of the other one, the mentee, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to want to become that. So it also has to be aligned with the personality. So I like that, right? So
Yeah.
And that's something that you have found, like right off the bat, you were able to kind of incorporate that, or you kind of, was that evolved through?
That evolved over time. I mean, we had a very traditional mentorship program, and it was partially utilized, not at the level that we felt like it could, not at the level we felt like it should. We weren't really seeing the level of results. And so I mean, I'm a big reader, right? Like, so I read a ton of books, and I just kept reading, and I kept taking ideas and thinking of things and talking to the team and trying to figure out what else can we add to this to make this more successful. Mm-hmm. And we ultimately ended up here. And that's really, a lot of it is from the feedback from the team of saying like, hey, sometimes it feels daunting that I'm supposed to connect with someone for a year. I don't know that I'm going to be here a year. Right. Mm-hmm. So really making sure that it's like shorter term and that they immediately feel comfortable and confident in matching up with their mentor.
That's perfect. And I like what you said also about the personal, understanding their personal goals too, right? Because it's not just professional goals. It's like, what do they want in life, right? And, maybe, what I say to folks is, after 2 years, usually that's, if you're in a role for 2 years, you're either going to grow or go, right? So, yeah. And what I mean by grow, you're going to grow in the organization that you're in to provide better career path or growth or maybe the next level, the next thing that you want, or you're going to go and find it somewhere else. So why not, if this person is really good, it's a company, right? Why not invest and talk to those people, not wait a year or wait 2 years, but you're constantly talking to them to make sure that it's in line. Their goals and the company's goals are aligned. And as they continue to be aligned, they could potentially be there longer, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that we're asking them. I think you bring up an important point, right? It's something that we're asking them from day one, right? So like as they're doing their onboarding, there's a whole piece of their onboarding outside of the W-4 and the I-9 and all the regular paperwork. There's a whole section that's really just like, hey, tell us about you. How do you like to be recognized? How do you like to be rewarded? Are you interested in joining any like personal interest groups here? Are you interested in mentorship here? And we're figuring those things out from the get-go and being mindful about that and making sure that when and if we can, we're making connections and we're not having to like catch up, if that makes sense. Like we've gathered that information. I think it's also important to be vulnerable and honest. Like we're all humans. And so, there's things that, I do to make sure, right? So one of those is I want to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident with me. I think there's a stigma as an HR person that, we do bad things, that we're there to fire people, that we're, we're tough and we're mean and, or you can watch some, TV shows and they just make fun of us, right? All of that to say, like, I want to be more than just an email or, an open enrollment meeting. So I do like office hours within the locations. Oh, wow. And I give them a list and I say, hey, like, I'm going to be at this location from this time to this time on this day. Please come see me. And here's a laundry list of things you can talk to me about. And on that list, of course, it's all of their, benefits or payroll or whatever they might need. But it's also things like, hey, I really love the TV show Survivor. So like, if you want to just come and have a conversation and get to know me, here are some things about me that I, love to talk about. And that's been really fun for me. And it's in those conversations that I'm learning more and more about our team, who they are, what they like, and kind of how we can really connect with them.
Right. No, that's great. And you're right. I mean, when you think, a lot of people, when you think in HR, right? HR is all about administrative, right? Like, or, an issue came up and I'll go talk to HR or, something. It's always, the perspective is that or open enrollment, right? My benefits right here and there on onboarding or offboarding, right? That's it. But it's not it. For good organizations that really want to make an impact and really create that culture, right? It's having the right person in there that's leading it with the right mindset of, it's about growing our people. It's about taking care of our people, making the connections. And you took it a step farther. It's like, it's not only about taking care of our connections, it's also taking care of our community that surrounds us, because that's where we are. So that's an amazing, amazing thing to see what you've been able to do. And, the advice for other leaders, let's say other owners of other companies that can look at what their HR, organization is right now. And maybe that's where they need to look within and be like, okay, how can we improve this? It doesn't mean like, let's completely change, right? But what's one thing that you could do, if you could advise one of them, like they're not necessarily on that mindset, but what's one thing that you, as from an HR perspective, can do to start going towards that direction?
Stop telling people who they are and actually figure out who they are. Like, I think that that's a thing that every business makes a little bit of a mistake in thinking that humans are cookie cutter, and they're not. I think that we've seen work evolve. And I know that, like, when I first started waiting tables and hosting 100 years ago, it was very like, leave your problems at the door. Work is your sanctuary. You come here, you're never on your phone, and you're only focused on this. And we need you to check out from the rest of the world. And that's not reality, right? Like, people are showing up as their whole self at work, and we need to be open, honest, and okay with that. There is a lot happening in every single person's lives. And it's not our job to know everything that's happening in them, but it is our job to make sure that they feel supported and that they feel safe. Mm-hmm. And to me, safety is way more than like, slip resistant shoes or, the proper lifting of something that's heavy. I mean, safety is coming to work and feeling heard, feeling supported, knowing that we have your back and that we're not going to make you change. We're going to meet you where you're at.
Yeah, 100%. And it's removing that fear from the people, right? Because again, people fear being genuine in an organization. If that organization doesn't allow for that open transparency in a respectful way, right? But open transparency in a way that, hey, I'm not happy where I am. I'm not being challenged enough, or the environment that I'm in is a little toxic. Is there any way that we can kind of navigate, right? It takes a lot to say that from an employee, right? But I think if you don't have that platform, or you haven't created that culture, it's going to continue to be hard.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I think that, like, you touched on this. I have those conversations sometimes too, where it's like, hey, like, are you okay? And I think that that's how we start a lot of conversations. Are you okay? And this doesn't have to be everyone's job for their entire life, but we do hope that while you're here, you're treated well, you enjoy your time, and that this is a platform to your next best thing. And so sometimes we have those conversations too. We're like, hey, are you okay? You don't have to stay here. How can we help you be your happiest? And, we also make sure we want our team to go out in the world and be successful. So many of our team members are students, and we support that and we love that. And we want them to be successful. And so part of that is, we teach them about finances, and like our finances we are an open book management organization, and we have our P&L open to them any and all times. Wow. And we have a whole financial literacy program that has helped team members, start other businesses and buy their first home and get out of debt. And so it's really it's about improving the community, improving the world, and not just, serving burgers and pancakes.
Right. I love it. That impact you guys are creating, right? It's amazing. I mean, it's just, imagine, is one word that keeps coming up is, and I've used it in the past, generational impact. Meaning, you're not just impacting that individual that you helped get a house, or helped, get a job, or maybe start your own business. Now think about that. Fast forward 5-10 years from now, right? Now those businesses, you helped create other businesses. So that generational impact is going to continue. And that's what, that warms my heart. And that's why, as a kind leader, right, I think looking at it as a kind organization, you guys are doing it right for sure. So very impressed, and congrats.
I want to take like 30 seconds and tell like one funny story that I just thought of. So years and years ago, I mean, I'm talking like, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 years ago, we had a woman who worked at our original location. She was a server, and she had an interest in insurance. And she came and she spent literally 1 hour with me and just was like, can we talk about insurance? And I was like, sure. Worked for us for a little bit longer. Fast forward, we're renewing our healthcare, and she ends up being the claims adjuster on our account. And she was like, I was thrilled. She was thrilled. We had this whole moment. Everyone in the room looked at us like we were weirdos. And I was like, no, like, we know each other. Like, she used to work here. And she was like, that was one of the greatest things you could have done for me. And it really got me excited. And, that's how I ended up here. And so that's one of my favorite stories, and that's what we're trying to do. That's
beautiful. Yeah. That's amazing. One thing that I want to share too is, in our organization, we call our HR group is people success.
I love that.
And it's the success of our people that's going to make this company. So our people success is their responsibility. So now you think, okay, instead of going to HR, I'm going to people success. So psychologically, it's like, they're going to help me succeed. So And that's been helping, right? That's been helping. And, it's because you got to incorporate it, but you have to have the right person to drive that and continuously be there to support the employees at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you have to have the right leadership, right? Like, your people success we can have all the greatest ideas in the world, but if we don't have the support from, people like you and people like my boss, our CEO, who is an incredible human, right? Like, then you're dead on the water. You can't really move forward from that if you don't have support from the top leadership and if you don't have a people first culture. And that's really what I love the most about being here and why I've stayed as long as I've stayed, because we're able to put people first.
Amazing. So speaking of the culture, I mean, there's one thing that microcultures, you talk about, right? Because I know there's the overall culture of the organization, but then break it up into either departments or, locations. Talk a little bit about that and how that relates to kind of what we've been discussing as well.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think people are coming as their whole selves to work, and their whole selves are all just very different and unique. And so, of course, culture is different and culture is unique. And so we as an organization really kind of look at each location similarly. And one thing that's consistent across the board is kindness. That's a huge piece of who we are. Our core values are really simple. There's 3 of them: care for the food, care for the guests, care for each other. If we can do those 3 things, which we call our 3 C's, then we feel like that's going to create success. So we keep those things in mind. But, each location, they're their own personality. Just like they all look a little bit different, they all act a little bit different. But kindness and teamwork, those are like the consistent, and those are the bedrock of kind of the culture within our organization. And then beyond that, some locations, they really care, about diversity. Some locations really care about basically like giving back to the community. And so we support them and we meet them where they're at. And we have little town halls with each location to determine how things are going and the direction that they need from us and the support they need from us.
Gotcha. Beautiful. Yeah. And you said you treat the location or the departments, not treat, but like you see them, right, as how we as individuals, we're not the same, right? So how they create that microculture is impactful. So being aware of what's happening and how you navigate, because you'll have your foundational, your bedrock core values and the leadership things that you guys are driving and training, but then also being aware and allowing them to express themselves as a collective for that. Because you never know, you could potentially learn something that could be great to share with other departments, other teams, right?
Yeah, culture is not one size fits all. And the idea that culture is one size fits all is really like, it's kind of painting you in a corner. It's a living thing. So allow it to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of evolution, with the new generations coming up, what do you see? How does an HR leader like yourself and kind of leading with kindness in an organization, how do we adapt, and what are the things that we need to be looking to be able to connect better with the future generations?
I think that you and I have probably been around the workforce long enough to know that every generation that is coming in the workforce is supposedly the worst generation that we've ever seen. We hear that over and over. Oh, Gen, whatever, they're just lazy or they don't know anything. I do not subscribe to that philosophy. That is not right. That is not fair. Every generation comes in with differences. It doesn't make them better or worse than anyone else. And I think acknowledging that, recognizing that, and treating people with that in mind is really important. Because I think when leaders subscribe to this, oh, they're lazy or, oh, they don't know, that immediately your team feels that and they know that. Those are a little bit of sometimes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So pushing that out the window and then just really taking kind of like inventory of your demographics and of what your team needs. And so that's a huge shift that we've had in the last 5 years is we used to hardly have any teenagers who worked here. And now we have a ton of teenagers. They make up about a fourth of our organization now. And so that was something that was really new to all of us. Just figuring out what that team needed to feel comfortable and safe and successful at work. And that just takes talking to them.
Yeah. And that's the key right there, talking and connecting and understanding. I don't subscribe to the whole Gen, whatever. We are all people at the end of the day, right? We all, they may have grown up with different technologies or different things, and it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, we're people. I was at a career fair yesterday at a university, and people were coming up talking, and that's the new generation that's coming up, right? That's future leaders. And I saw people that were, suited up with their tie and everything, and very, a little bit nervous, but here's who I am, what I'm doing, right? And then other people with shorts, just coming up and I'm like, hey, what do you got for me? So,
right. Well, but I think that also shows, right? They're showing up as themselves.
Yes, exactly. So my point to that, I treated them and I talked to them the same way. It doesn't matter, right? Because I wanted to get to know them, right? And I was like, even the guy with the suit, I was like, tell me more about you. What like, I really wanted to get to know this person rather than the presentation or the thing that he thought would be great, right? To show up to an interview, right? With him. It's like, no, like I appreciated that, but I give people the opportunity no matter what and get to know them and get to connect with them before you even pass judgment or pass on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I completely agree. Like, don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. All right. I think it's been a great conversation. I think we're kind of going towards the end here with some additional questions. I'm going to use some rapid questions for you if you're ready. The first question is, what's one book every leader should read?
As I said earlier, I read a lot. So we're going to go with Atomic Habits, which if you haven't read Atomic Habits, highly recommend. I think it's one of the most impactful books for anyone. And it teaches you really, truly how to be successful in and out of work. Doesn't matter. It gives you tools to be successful.
Awesome. So one of my favorites as well. And other guests have mentioned that as well. Interesting.
Okay.
What's your favorite leadership mantra?
If it is to be, it is up to me, which it's called 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. And so I think that's really just taking ownership. That's what it means to me, taking ownership and being the driving force for good.
I love it. It kind of gives you like if it's a destiny, but it's up to me to still do it, execute on it, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and it also takes out the whole, sometimes people are like, oh, I couldn't, it's not up to me. Or, sometimes there's a little bit of a victim mentality. Yeah. And this really it's empowering. And it's like, no, take ownership. You can do this.
Love it. I'm going to use that there, Roseanne.
Yeah. And it's easy to remember. So that helps too.
Yeah, I love it. One small but impactful action leaders can take today to improve workplace culture.
Talk to your team. Talk to people. Any and always and all the time. Don't walk through the office with, your AirPods in. Don't, be on the phone. Come in every day, talk to your people. When you're in a public shared space, communicate. Make sure they know who you are and make sure you know who they are.
Perfect. If you could have coffee with anyone alive or from the past, who would it be and why?
I legitimately think I would actually probably talk to my grandmother, my mother's mother. She was a first-generation American. And when I was growing up, I didn't speak Spanish, and it was really hard for she and I to communicate. And I would love to hear kind of her entire story because she was like a pioneer. Wow. And she was a businesswoman. And she, all of my aunts and uncles, she helped create some incredible humans that, have molded me.
Amazing. Generational impact right there.
Yeah, generational impact.
If you don't mind me asking, where was she from?
Spain, Barcelona.
Wow, Spain. Very cool. Yeah, nice.
She came a long way.
I know. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about you?
LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. I love connecting and I love hearing stories. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. And the last question for you. Any final message you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Final messages would really just be, your brain is going to tell you how to live unless you tell it how to think, right? So make sure you're waking up every day, being positive, being kind, being good. And I think that will cause a ripple effect. So always go into every situation as positive as possible.
Mindset, right?
Mindset.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. So Roseanne, I appreciate your insightful conversation. It gave me a different perspective on understanding it's not just about the individual being kind, but the organization as well. They can be kind to the community that it supports and surrounds. So I appreciate all the little nuggets you provided to our audience here. So thank you for sharing. And to our audience, thank you for listening to the Kind Leader Podcast. And remember, be kind, bring value, rise together.